Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another Hump Day. Joining me as always is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus. Wow, the energy here. Well, let me go ahead and start you off with, I think, a funny joke. What did the turkey say to the turkey hunter on Thanksgiving Day?
Hello, hello, hello. Kill the rabbit.
Wow. No, it was quack, quack.
I was close. Oh, because he's a duck.
Yeah.
All right, clever.
Oh, too funny.
So for new listeners out there, I will give you a quick rundown of what we do here on this channel. Voyse scours Reddit for stories that are interesting, funny, and dramatic, and we give our viewpoint on them. And we look forward to hearing yours as well.
Yes, we do. So let's go ahead and jump us right into the mystery drink today. I am very excited for you to try it.
I don't know what it is, but
it's very thick looking, though.
It does look thick.
Full of flavor, a little bit of spice.
That's definitely eggnog, but what's in there?
So it's a spiced, lactate-free eggnog. You know, for anybody that's got, stomach problems.
It's like pumpkin?
I believe so. Or at least the spice is for pumpkin in it.
That's crazy.
I love it. I tried a sip of it and I'm just like, this is what the baby wants now.
Do we have more of that in the house?
We do. But we're probably going to have to fight for it.
It's going to be gone.
It's going to be Hunger Games style.
That's fine. I'll fight you and the baby up.
Well, while you go ahead and enjoy your morning eggnog, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for not being friendly with my partner's daughters now that they've warmed up to me? I'm 42, dating Tim, 59, a widower. He's in banking. I'm a bartender. I know what it looks like. His two daughters thought the same thing, but he's broke as a joke, and I've got a trust fund. So actually, no. He's broke because his late wife got cancer 3 times. He ran up 6 credit cards, second mortgage on the house, cashed out his retirement, everything and anything to get her the treatment she needed, and then to get treatment enough to see both daughters married. His daughters live a 6-hour drive away. We drove to them for Christmas last year and the year before. They ignored me, dragged him away when he tried to include me, and prevented their husbands from making even small talk with me by talking over me. Year 1, Tim chastised them. They apologized. To him, not me. They blamed the pain of seeing their dad with a woman who wasn't their mum. Year 2, they did it again. This year, I told Tim, not again. He could go. I would never ask him not to see his daughters for Christmas, but I'll stay here. Tim didn't love the idea because me going with him means we can share the responsibility of driving when his back starts to bother him. He hates to fly. His 2010 death trap is starting to go anyway, so I leased him a comfy luxury ride. My brother has a dealership. He called the girls, super excited that he'd be able to see them more often without having to worry about his back, who then blew up and accused him of spending their mother's money on bullshit house and car to impress some bimbo bartender who didn't offer them a dime for their weddings. In the ensuing argument, it came out that they assumed there had been a life insurance policy, nor did they have any idea about the credit card debt or the second mortgage that the house was underwater on, or that Tim was looking at foreclosure and bankruptcy until he moved in with me. They did not realize it was my house, that he pays no bills save the water bill, man takes excessive showers, and shared groceries. Now the girls want my number. They are sorry I felt lonely at Christmas. They want to come visit and stay with us next year, conveniently in summer. I live near a beach. I've told Tim absolutely not about giving out my number. I'm happy to be polite if they come to visit Tim, but we're not going to be friends. If they had talked to me for even 2 seconds, they'd have understood. I'm not shy about admitting the only thing I have ever contributed to my blessed financial state is not developing a crippling coke addiction like my cousin Danny did. Tim thinks I'm being too unforgiving. They would have warmed up to me eventually, but knowing how generous I am being with their father has made them warm up quicker. I maintain I don't care about now or later. They had their chance to not be catty brats over incorrect assumptions that I was taking advantage of him. Am I the a-hole? Now, before we go ahead and get into this, our OP in the comment section lined up sort of a timeline of how everything sort of went down between Tim and his previous relationship and what went down and their current relationship right now. Let me go ahead and actually read those bits of information so that you kind of get a gist of the timeline. Our OP says, previous relationship. First time she got cancer was 2015. She worked part-time and Tim full-time. Girls were entering college, which Tim paid for. Savings got wiped out thanks to her income disappearing as she went into aggressive treatment. Second time was the end of 2017, I think. Tim doesn't talk about it much and gets teary when he tries to. This is when he started relying on credit cards, then cashed out retirement to pay those back as best as I can tell. The younger of the two was in college. Older got married around this time. The third time was March of 2020. They had to pay for private hospice, mostly out of pocket, as the hospitals were full of dying COVID patients. This is when the second mortgage happened and more credit card usage happened. The younger girl married in June of 2020. Their mom died 2 months later. I started seeing Tim in January of 2022, and that was the year we went to the first Christmas with the girls. That's my best estimate for piecing together Tim's stories. Now on to the OP's relationship. Our OP says, Tim and I started dating in January of 2022. I know him before that as someone who came into the bar where I work. He traveled to my location for work once a month to make sure the math was mathing, etc. He moved in with me August of 2022. Yes, fast, I know, but it worked. And then December of 2022 was the first Christmas I went with him to see the girls. We had been dating 11 months by that time. Christmas of 2023 was the second attempt at going with him to see the girls. Tim did talk to the girls about how they behaved after 2022 Christmas, about a month later after tensions had cooled, and that's when they apologized and gave the excuse of struggling with another woman being with their dad. Now, am I the a-hole?
Quite a comprehensive breakdown of events we have here. I feel for all of the struggle that Tim and the girls had gone through over the last 7-8 years now. It sounds like it's been quite a ride. And unfortunately, Tim's wife passed, leaving the family, or more so him, in a great amount of debt. He's about to lose everything at this point before he meets her. It sounds like Tim doesn't do a good job of communicating anything with his daughters, because had he, they would have been able to see it from the correct perspective.
Our OP describes Tim as being very prideful.
It sounds like he put the burden all on himself. He paid for his daughters to go through college, even while his wife was going through the cancer.
And he even paid for weddings, or at least tried to give money towards that as well.
Had everyone understood what you were going through instead of you putting it on your back, maybe there again would be a better understanding of what's really going on in Tim's life. Essentially, he got saved by our OP. He was able to move into a home basically rent-free, only covering water and shared groceries. It sounds like Tim's going to be able to make up the difference on all that debt at some point. He's been given a gift.
A very big gift.
His daughters looked at that situation as if Tim's being the one taken advantage of.
Because they see that he's a banker and she's just a bartender that's bartending for fun.
I'm sorry that Tim's not good at communicating, but the truth is, let's say for sake of argument, it did happen exactly as they perceived it. Does it still give you the right to treat her like that?
No.
When she walks into your family?
I don't believe so.
So it doesn't make it any better. Those women treated you like trash. You don't owe them a relationship. I wouldn't want to be around someone who didn't treat me right the second I walked in the door. Judged me off of false accusations that you made up, some narrative that you put in your head before you even shook my hand. First impressions are incredibly impactful and important on the people that we meet in our lives. Now, sometimes you can make it through a bad first impression. I'm not saying it's impossible. So, in my opinion, OP, what is she asking? Is that she doesn't want to give them a second chance at a relationship? And she could possibly be wrong for that?
Yes.
No. they're adults. They made those decisions. This is how you look at life. I can't be upset with you that you don't want to start a relationship with two adults that didn't want to even give you the time of day before they even met you.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole, with some spatterings of everyone sucks here. Now, let me go ahead and actually put, I guess, a little bit more understanding of the relationship based on our OP's comments, because there were a lot of people who really came down on poor Tim. Our OP says that Tim, aside from just being a little prideful, is actually a very wonderful individual. And for it to have his daughters be in such contrast to how nice and good of a person he is, to have them be so almost like cold and cruel, was, I think, one of the things that was extremely jarring of this whole situation for our OP. Now, our OP has made it very clear that Tim and OP are not getting married at all. For Tim, his one and only to marry was his wife. Aside from that, they don't want to mingle any funds because he's got so much debt under him and she has her trust fund. They're fine with having that legally be a very separate thing. They don't want to mix any of that.
Makes sense.
So it's not that they're, I guess you could say, taking advantage of each other. In fact, the way that our OP sort of describes the relationship with understanding that he has his late wife is that his late wife has given Tim on loan to her so that they can enjoy each other's company, because it feels like are very lonely individuals that were able to find solace with each other.
How very logical.
Aren't we all just lonely individuals till we find our other half?
Sure. And then the other end, not wanting to mix the finances, but just be happy with each other, because that can be a whole other mess when you start getting married. And I understand wanting marriage, and that's important for some folks, but for them, it sounds like they're a little older, really don't want to have to go through all that red tape. They can just enjoy each other's company. And when that day comes that maybe they don't want to, at least there's none of that overhead that they have to really worry about too much.
Exactly. Now, on to what the consensus for Redditors and why they think not the a-hole or everyone's ex here. For many Redditors, the fault truly lay on Tim, as there were many misunderstandings that could have been cleared up had he been more upfront. The fact that he could have cleared them up with that bartending for fun meant, and that he was the one who was financially being taken care of due to all the financial debts he had taken from their mother falling ill. Just that simple enough as it is. However, many also put onus on the daughters, as they never spoke up to address their concerns with their father. The only time that it seems as if they spoke on early concerns was that they just didn't like their dad dating another woman. Not that there was any financial concerns that somebody was taking advantage of their father.
Yeah.
That came up now, almost 2 years later. Now, if I were in OP's shoes, I'd be very cautious and slow in forming relationships with these two, as their ability to assume the worst without respectfully speaking to the source, to me, speaks volumes.
Sure.
Not everything is what it seems. My only advice to OP or anybody in OP's shoes would be, your partner, whether you decide to marry them or not, and yourself need to be on the same page when delivering a message to family and friends regarding certain dynamics they don't understand and really have no place to speak on. Also, for anyone else out there, it is okay to be worried for someone, but allowing assumptions to negatively influence how someone is treated, well, that's a real character flaw that you should be working on.
Woo, voice.
I think that is something that was really ingrained on me early on. Assumptions are one of those things where you can have them. And a lot of the times when it comes to our everyday tasks, assumptions are how we operate as a human being. But when you're talking about someone's character, when you assume the worst of someone's character because of your perspective, and then you realize if you just took a step to the left or to the right, it's not what you thought, the way you treat that person because of those assumptions tells me that you are a bad person. You should have taken the time to ask the questions. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the source to ask questions because I don't like to let my assumptions dictate how I treat someone. I think that is awful of those daughters to do. So for me, the onus comes back down to these girls. You don't know the relationship with the father and the OP. And while you don't agree with all of it, treating someone with respect, it really doesn't take very much to do that.
Kindness is completely free.
It is. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about another interesting dynamic. Am I the a-hole? My husband is better than my boyfriend's husband.
What's happening right now?
No, I must say before anything, the title of this post confused everyone as, of course, it came across BF or boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But our OP was trying to put BFF, best friend. And many people actually came to see the drama unfold in a poly relationship, but it's not that.
Gotcha. Well, that's where I was going with this.
But I figured I would read the title exactly as is because I was ready for this drama to unfold.
You wanted the clickbait.
Just a little.
I clicked.
However, there is still drama, I promise.
Okay.
On to the story. I'm writing this post because my best friend's, Kate, husband, Bert, called my husband, Tim, an a-hole. Another Tim.
Tim's aplenty.
I have historically kept my opinion of Bert's behavior to a minimum on the grounds that good friends say their piece once and then love each other through shit relationships. But I'm asking internet strangers to be the judge. I am traveling for work. Kate is stuck at home working at 7 months pregnant on modified bed rest. Generally, during the week, I drop over once or twice to bring her family some dinner. Tim cooks extra portions once a week to share. Cheer her up, read her oldest a couple of bedtime stories so that mom can go to bed early and get some sleep. Bert works an office job. Stressful, I'm sure, but during her pregnancy, he's been working longer and longer hours, salaried, not overtime. She's been sad and a bit lonely. Yes, I've suggested counseling. With that for background, this evening, she and I were texting. It was about 6-ish, and she got a craving for a taco place near my house, and importantly, near Bert's office. She says she asked him to grab her some on his way home. He says he's not stopping. He's got work at home, and she should just DoorDash something close. This makes her extremely sad. She says irrationally sad, but you be the judge, because he used to surprise her with her favorite tacos, and now he can't be bothered. As one does, I tell Tim, I'm 3 states away, so it was just part of our chat as I was getting back to the hotel and getting ready for work dinner. I get back from dinner and Tim had gone and picked her up the tacos, remembered the bag of things I'd collected for her and the kids that were in my car, and pulled a tuna casserole from the freezer. Bert hates tuna casserole. He dropped them off on the porch and just texted her that there were some things I wanted her to have. Then Bert gets home. Did he bring tacos, coloring books, or a good attitude? No, he did not. He called Tim to tell him that he was an a-hole for showing him up. Other colorful language was also used, including some fairly sexist nonsense. He also texted me telling me to keep my husband away from his wife. Tim did respond rudely when Bert called. Kate says he told Bert he was a failure as a human, a man, a father, and a husband. Apparently that caused Bert to scream expletives so loud their daughter started to cry. Not good. Tim then hung up on Bert, blocked him, and texted Kate that if she needed someone in an emergency, she knew where to call, but he wasn't putting up with her shit husband any longer. It's a giant cluster, and I have no idea what's going to happen. My husband feels bad things escalated so much, particularly since their daughter was crying. He feels like an a-hole at the moment. Obviously, Bert thinks he's an a-hole. I think he's a sweet man. What do you guys think?
I think this is a mess. So we're getting this from the perspective of the friend, the best friend.
Correct. And she's
and her
out of
husband.
state.
Yes. She's out of state for what reason?
She's at work.
Okay. But her husband is close by, which is
Correct.
why he's the one that was delivering the, I guess, care package
Correct.
to her best friend while she wanted tacos and, I guess, more attention. She's feeling alone in the middle of the pregnancy.
Yes.
While her husband is working overtime the last several months, weeks, something like that.
7 months.
Okay. that can be pretty tough on a family. I'm not certain, are they like a young family? Do they have kids already? There's a lot.
It sounds like there's one kid based on the comments.
Sounds like there's, a lot going on right now, but loneliness does play a factor in this story, and that can impact the overall health of a marriage. And then you're compounding that by someone being pregnant. Irrational or not, those are still feelings. It's just sometimes they get amplified. So her friend who is pregnant, Kate, calls, I guess, her husband who's working, asks for some tacos that were close by.
Yeah, she's all like, I'm having a hankering for those tacos that's near your workplace. Remember how you used to surprise me? Coy look.
It's funny because Voyse had a Taco Tuesday hankering.
Yeah, he did.
And so we got some tacos for her.
It was so delicious.
But he says on this night, I just want to get home. All right, I'm going straight home. I'm not making any stops. Some people can be a little more like that, especially if, I'm not sure what his work is. She says office, but just because you say office doesn't mean that's easy. Some people might blanket that statement and go, well, just because you work in an office, things aren't that bad. You're not.
She's saying that he's working a lot of overtime,
which can add up. You might be dealing with someone that their social battery is done at the end of a day. You don't know what their hours look like.
I've had to learn my social battery while being pregnant, and I don't like it.
We each have them. Sure, would you like to hear from your partner when you're asking for something when they're coming home to grab something on the way? You'd like, sure. But you also need to be understanding as a partner too.
And that's why I think Kate was saying that she felt irrationally sad about it.
But you're allowed to have the feelings. It's just how we outlet them is the difference. For her, she, I guess at that point, talks to her friend, tells her all about it. We do need places to vent. And that sounds like what our OP was to Kate. Was Tim in the wrong for doing all of that when he heard a friend? Because these are friends.
Correct. And it sounds like OP does quite a bit in their lives. Like, it sounds like she actually, I guess you can say, unburdens Kate when it comes to watching the child, to the other young child, reading stories and kind of giving her some breathing room.
Yeah.
So
it does sound like this is almost a family member.
Yeah. The way that I get the feeling of is almost like they're godparents.
Okay.
At least that's the gist of it internally. Although for me, there's no way to really confirm aside from just gut feelings.
It sounds like what ended up happening is now Bert, being the husband, comes and sees all of these things that are dropped off by another man. Now, instead of handling it the way you should have, which is gone, you know what, hey, a lot of people...
Dude, I owe you a beer.
A lot of people love my wife. And just because I wasn't able to be there doesn't mean I have to be jealous of other people being there. We're not talking about a relationship that's budding, a romantic relationship, assuming that's what Bert's looking at Tim as now, is you're trying to walk in on my space.
Tim left it as a care package on the porch. He didn't stay and do anything weird.
Now, if there was something that, leads Bert to believe that that's what's happening, then maybe there's an argument to be had, but it just sounds like people cared about your wife and that you need to rationally as an adult look at that and say, hey, I wasn't able to pick up the ball tonight. Not every day can we be there for our partners. It doesn't work like that. Not in the real world.
We try, but it doesn't mean that we're perfect.
And that might be playing into why he's feeling this way. Who knows how long he's been on the grind? Who knows how much overtime he's already put in over the last 7 months? Maybe he's not in the right state of mind. Maybe he's sleep deprived as well. You never know. A lot of these things play into why people act the way they do. And I'm not excusing his actions on this, by the way. Please don't misunderstand me. But what I am saying is sometimes things can pile up.
I can understand that.
So I hope that for Bert, he got a second to take a step back, because maybe that whole reaction came out of guilt. I didn't go get those tacos, so some other man got those tacos for my wife.
And now I'm a really bad husband.
Yeah, that's a trickle. Everyone feels that way in their life, not feeling good enough or that they were able to do enough for their partner. Everyone has those things come in and out of their mind in a relationship. It happens. We got to react better to them. We can all feel inadequate. It happens from time to time. But doing that to good friends, the way Bert went about it, is wrong. So really quick, what is it exactly that OP is asking?
So our OP is asking if they're the a-hole for their husband being a better husband at that time. To
her friend?
Correct.
Is that literally what she's asking?
Correct.
What a weird question to ask. No, husband wasn't being a better husband for fetching stuff for her. It was just a bad situation that got made worse because of their situation and insecurities. Yeah, like no one's better than anyone else's husband. What a weird way to ask that.
I think the only reason why they're asking that is because of how Bert came across.
Some people just really do have down days.
And that's very true.
So that's an unfair question to even kind of ponder.
Well, for Redditors, our OP's not the a-hole. Now, I find it funny because there's one comment that really made me laugh out loud here because they said, I came for the drama and all I got was Saint Tim the Gallant. Although they said they seriously love OP's husband's vibe though. Now for Redditors, they said Bert's reaction was really over the top. In fact, it had many wondering what Bert was really doing staying so late at the office. It wasn't like Kate stopped working, but just had a modified work schedule. In the end, OP's not the a-hole for her or her husband wanting to just help a friend though.
Yeah.
I will say the working late thing really, at least for me, I've been in those form where you're salaried and you have to work the overtime, but nowadays there's a lot of work that you can bring home. And if this change in schedule has happened sometime during the pregnancy and has never happened before because they already have a child together, I have to wonder about those historical dynamics and what happened there. Now, that's just a bunch of assumptions. Let me go ahead and provide you with an update.
Before you get started in the update, I would like to piggyback off that last thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people now that are being forced back to the office 5 days a week.
That is very true.
So making assumptions based off of a schedule change might be a little too much for me, but let's hear where this update's going to go.
All right, let's see. So our update says, not a happy update. 1, I apologize for screwing up the title last time. I was trying to be brief and wound up being wildly disappointing. My apologies. Hopefully this is more effective and they actually put BFF. 2, this update is shared with Kate and Tim's permission. For reasons, Bert can go fuck himself. Bert did email Tim this morning to apologize. Bert said he had forgotten I was out of town and he didn't realize that Tim was dropping off the meal train food. It was a weird email for many reasons, but Tim responded politely if non-committal. Tim hasn't changed his view of Bert, in part because of what happened between Bert and Kate this afternoon. Bert also texted me to apologize, but I didn't get his message until after I landed, and by then everything else had happened. I've elected not to respond. Bert went home around noon after staying at a hotel last night. Kate's sister had taken their daughter to the park, so Bert and Kate could talk it out. Short version is that Bert has been avoiding Kate because she's not happy during this pregnancy. I mentioned in a comment that Kate had been married previously, and shortly after her first husband died, she had complications in pregnancy that forced her on bed rest. Unfortunately, her son didn't make it. Her current pregnancy is bringing up a lot of painful memories, and she's scared she won't be able to make it to full term. So yes, she's not as cheery as she was when she was pregnant with their daughter. It's a difficult time. Bert is frustrated and angry that she's not happy, so he's been staying late and ignoring her until she stops doing that. I know that sounds horrid, but I think they could have worked through those feelings. But as he was explaining how he felt, he said she should be glad her son wasn't there because otherwise she wouldn't have this life at all. Yeah, that still knocks the wind out of me. It's so cruel. She did talk to him about that statement, but the explanations doesn't get better. In any event, for her, that was just the end. She told him she was done. They can work out joint custody, but the marriage was over. She called her sister, and she and her husband encouraged Bert to leave. Currently, Kate's not angry or sad or panicked. She's just done. Personally, I'm surprised, since they've weathered some fairly shitty things, including infidelity by him. But I guess that was the line. In any event, her D&D friends are over there for Saturday games night, and they are eating waffles. She thought it was important to the internet to know that waffles are appropriate separation food. In terms of her well-being, which many kind souls were worried about, they have a prenup. The house is hers. His family property is his. I'm sure there will be a fight over custody, but she will be financially okay. In any event, she has family and friends who will help and support regardless of what happens.
Well, maybe my defense of people working 5 days a week is indefensible. But
I can understand it, though. There are a lot of people who are, and you are very right, who are being forced back to work, who the work that they can do at home, they're no longer being given the option, or they're being told to essentially give up the job. I think that is important to note, that not every situation is the same. And when you try and take the climate of what's going on, also putting that into perspective is important when you and I don't get the full story. Now,
well, the full story on the other end, though, is that he wanted to do it because he wanted separation from his wife, because he deemed it, she's being too emotional and being upset about her past.
Or she's just being overall unpleasant and she should fake her happiness.
Kate really needs to go speak to somebody. You got to make sure you're talking to someone.
Stress is so important to deal with when you're in the pregnancy, especially when you know you've had a difficult one before. I mean, I'm pregnant. I can't imagine what it would be like to reflect on something that happened before that was out of your control, and to try and help those feelings of, it becomes guilt on the person who feels as if they could not carry to full term. So I 100% back that up. Please, you need someone to talk to. I wonder if that was the reason why she wanted to kind of be spoiled and loved and didn't want to feel lonely without Bert. And then when Bert wasn't giving her any kind of support, how that was starting to impact her more into, just having a more negative mindset that, I'm being irrational here. My feelings, I feel these things and I don't have anybody there to help me aside from my friends. I think Bert saying that she should be glad she doesn't have her son there, otherwise she wouldn't have the life that they have now.
Oof.
Man, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall as Kate turned around and said, "Explain that to me." And the explanations that they had, something along the lines of, well, you would have maybe been a single mom and I would have never been interested. And like everything that's like of that just falls down the ladder for me. And I go, man, you should have just kept your trap shut. The fact that he had infidelity problems on top of that, this was just the icing on the cake here.
Well, it sounds like Kate, again, has the support she needs to get through this breakup. They had a prenup. Kind of sounds like it's going to be, the only real fight's going to be with the custody. And that's why we have the court system. So
that's very true.
Keep playing D&D and hanging out with your friends and family.
Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about lying to kids. Am I the a-hole for refusing to lie to my kids for my ex? My ex, 31 female, and I, 30 male, have 2 kids together, 10 and 9. Our marriage ended when I learned she was cheating on me. The guy she was cheating with is now her husband. They have been together since before our first child was even conceived. And when I learned this, I paid for a DNA test to make sure our children were mine. They are mine biologically. That was confirmed. And once that was confirmed and we had attended 3 co-parenting classes, we were shared physical and legal custody. That means the children spend 50% of the time at both mine and my ex's house. In June of this year, my kids told me that their grandmother, ex's mom, had told them that their mom and her husband were cheaters and broke up our family, and that's why their mom and her husband, hate me. I didn't lie to the kids and say that it wasn't true, but I did talk to them and assured them they didn't need to hate anyone on my behalf, and I told them it didn't have to change things. But it has. The kids have brought it up with my ex repeatedly since they learned this, and they call my ex's husband mean now. The kids didn't have the greatest relationship with him before this, but now they don't want to spend time with him, and they say he's really mean. My ex was furious with her mom when she realized what her mom had done. She had blamed me for telling them beforehand, though not to my face. Now that she knows what happened, she has been telling me to lie and say they never cheated and that they met after we broke up. I refused, and she said I'm a failure as a parent. I'm hurting our kids, ruining their family, and that I should love our kids more than I hate her and make sure they can love and respect her again. I said I won't lie and that I have already talked to our kids and I refuse to cover for her. She has fired more and more accusations of me mistreating our kids. Am I the a-hole?
Y'all did not go to those co-parenting classes. It's a messy situation in like any direction you look at in this story.
This is a no-win.
Yeah, the cat got let out, and how old are those children?
10 and 9.
Oh no. That is a very interesting age because that's when you're like able to start conceptualizing the meaning of relationships in your life, right? And you're starting to form these connections with people. Yeah. Ooh, and that's what they got hit with? Who initially says it?
So it was the ex's mom.
Yeah. You can't undo it. And unfortunately, the only thing that's going to fix that relationship with those kids and the parents is the parents' relationship with those kids. You can't undo the past, but going forward, you can make sure that those relationships you have with them are healthy. You can't have the parent go, by the way, none of that was real, guys.
Your your maternal grandmother's a liar.
Yeah. Don't lie for other folks. So you're not the a-hole, OP.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, our OP didn't spill the can of worms, but was incorrectly accused instead. Instead, OP tried to work through these feelings with his kids to hopefully negate any bad behavior. Many Redditors think that counseling is needed for these kids to grow up mentally healthy and without hatred. I must add on, really emphasize this. Nowhere does it say that his ex apologized for the misunderstanding. And the fact that in another comment from OP, they clarified what their children are saying when they're calling the other man mean, because it sounds like he shit talks their biological father.
Oh, that's a no-no.
And honestly, let me put it this way. These kids are so PG that all that they do is call this guy mean, when he is truly a romantic landmine, because you can hear how this guy stepped into another person's relationship and blew it apart.
What'd you say?
A romantic landmine.
Okay.
He's a homewrecker. And now you're talking bad about these children's biological father.
Yeah, you don't really have a foot to stand on.
Seriously. If anything, this ex really needs to get her stuff together rather than worrying about the image that you already laid down in stone because your actions did that. You should be worrying about making sure that your kids understand that they are loved by you. And if this dude, this homewrecker that you decided to build another life with, is alienating your kids by talking bad about their biological father, you need to set that straight.
100%.
So I truly have no tolerance towards parents who cannot at least find a mutual place of respect with each other. It bothers me that she would fire accusations. And like I said, you're not even coming back to apologize. Your own mother ousted you to your 10 and 9-year-olds. That's how bad your character is.
Meemaw wanted to smoke.
Well, let's go on to our last story. And let's see about DNA tests that hopefully is in a more positive light. I revealed the truth about my dad's dad through Ancestry. This happened over the summer, but this story is truly too amazing to not share. I went to visit my biological dad over the summer with my sister and boyfriend. I moved away about 6 hours from him with my mom and stepdad about 4 years ago. I went on this trip to visit and show my long-term boyfriend my hometown because I currently live in the area he grew up in. Anyways, last Christmas, I bought myself an Ancestry DNA package just for fun. I'm super into the whole where you come from thing. The other really huge mystery that I wanted to discover was who my real grandfather was. My grandmother had multiple children with a few different gentlemen. So my whole life, there was speculation as to who my grandfather was. My grandmother did not even know for sure. I believe my dad was aware of all the speculation, but chose to shut it out because he wanted to believe that the man who raised him was his biological dad. He passed long before I was born, so I never knew any of my potential grandfather's family. My dad has Ancestry himself, but never purchased the DNA kit. So I get my results back and it shows a list of people that you match with, but I didn't know, but maybe a few relatives on the list, and there were no members that stood out. Fast forward to this past summer, and I'm sitting down at the kitchen table with my dad talking to him about my results. I was showing him all the features that you unlock when you send in your DNA. Then I clicked on the matches tab. I started reading off the matches when he stopped me on one of them. The relative in particular went by the nickname Aggie online. He said, like Agatha? I confirmed that's who it was. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and told me that Aggie was his aunt, his dad's sister. I matched with her, confirming that the man that raised him was his biological dad. He burst into tears because now, after almost 50 years, he knows the truth. All I could do was cry with him as I saw closure fall over him. After he and I confirmed the truth, we talked more about other relatives, and I filled in more on my tree. It was really one of the most special moments I have ever had with my dad, and I hope it brings some people a heartfelt smile.
That was a good DNA story. When you started it off, I'm like, we've heard so many bad ones.
There are. If anything, I think back when DNA tests were not a thing, when you know that somebody's had children with multiple partners, it's just, you learn to form the relationships that you think is strongest with whomever you think is a more parental model. I've heard it before where, I mean, there's no way to truly know that someone's loyal to you. And then when you find out that they're not, and your siblings might just be half siblings, I know that can be almost heartbreaking. A lot of the times people would just refuse to take the tests because they'd like to live in that world of just, we're just full-blooded siblings and that's it.
Oh.
To know that this was probably something that was in the back of his head where he says, you know, the man that's raised me, I call dad. We've done all these things together. I might not be biologically related to him. That's a high possibility. My mother was very forefront that that might not be a thing, but I still love him like my dad regardless. And I don't want something like a DNA test to mar that perception for me. But to have it confirmed, I bet you is such a exhilarating feeling. To hear his relief, it's heartfelt.
Yeah.
You can also get good results from things that you would normally think is something negative.
Voyse did a whole deep dive on her family tree like last year.
Oh, yeah.
And oh my goodness gracious.
I can tell you I have family members out there that cared about filling in that tree.
It is comprehensive.
It goes back well beyond what I thought was normal.
You Germans.
That's just how we roll, you know what I mean?
Apparently. Mine's a little tree. Voyce's is like huge. Mine's this little thing. But that's life.
Well, your father was adopted and he also wasn't interested.
Yeah, both my parents were adopted.
There are a lot of people that I think when they're adopted into families where, because they feel as if they're no longer kept by their original family, that they just cut those ties off. You know, their family at that point became the ones that love and took care of them. They're not searching for something to fill the gap of what happened before.
What was our last story?
That was our last story.
Good one to end it off with.
I think the interesting story here for me was the first one, because it really does show that assumptions can twist how you treat others. Make sure don't do that.
Yeah. Shake their hand. Get to hear them say their name first. Hi, I'm, not the thing that you think I am.
Can you imagine being at any type of dinner table and you're just trying to have some mild conversations with someone or their partner and they're over talking you and then ignoring you? I can't even imagine how that would feel.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays and Wednesdays.
And on Fridays for our Patreon.
Yeah, that's right. Dumbest After Dark episodes.
Yes.
For some more serious and or silly stories. Sometimes they're just really awkward. Talking about our Patreon, thank you so much to all of our Patreons for your continued support. Seriously.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of y'all.
Mwah!
And as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
They weren't drama-filled, but I still think that they made us have a little bit of food for thought on certain things.
Sure. So let's see. No baby updates.
No baby updates.
But it's cold outside. That's why I'm wearing this thing. I went to go let the girls out this morning, and all 4 of us got hit with a cold gust of air, and all of us went right back in the house.
Surprise.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'm just trying to stay in bed as much as I can because it's nice and toasty in there.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I want to play more of that Build It game you found me.
She's gotten into this game called Coral Island, I think.
Yes.
I was aiming to find something that was more relaxing for her voice because we're at the point where we've watched a bunch of movies already, done TV shows. We still are pretty active where we can because obviously voice can only do so much now that we're in 3rd trimester.
I huff and puff wherever I need to go.
But we found a game that's very relaxing for her.
Yeah, and I get a build, and you get to still fight monsters. I like it. It's enjoyable.
Have a good rest of the week, everyone.